Good morning. My name is Shazia Khan, and the unit that we're doing today is Academic and Research Skills for Law. And the session we've got today is the assignment discussion session. So it's the last session. So we've done learning outcome 1, 2, 3, and 4, and now we're doing the assignment discussion session. So before I go into the assignment discussion session, I want to give you an overview of what we did in the last learning outcomes, the last 4. So in learning outcome 1, we looked at understanding how to research case law. We also looked at elements of researching all English law reports. We looked at elements of what legal research is. We looked at the definition of case law, so the importance of researching law, so legal precedents, legal arguments. We also looked at the steps to research case law. So it was things like identifying jurisdiction, so where the law was from, defining the legal issue and using legal tools, also looking for relevant cases and analysing case summaries. We also looked at the key concepts in case law research and examples of researching a case. We looked at challenges in researching case law and practical applications. We also looked at elements of what is meant by case law and researching all England law reports. We looked at locating case law. So you define the legal issue, analyze case law, check for citations, and look for databases like Westlaw and LexisNexis. We also looked at practical cases like Donoghue and Stevenson in Learning Outcome 1. We looked at identifying examples of case law, Donoghue and Stevenson, famous cases, Carlisle and the Smokeball Company, which was another famous case, and Aaron, Dudley and Stevens. We also looked at how to cite legal reasoning within case law and elements of using citation, using referencing, acknowledging the source. We looked at knowledge of websites such as Westlaw, LexisNexis, Bailey, Just One, and OPSA. We looked at also how case law precedent is followed by other courts, and looked at the hierarchy of the courts in the UK and the type of precedent, which is binding, persuasive, and original. We looked at structure of a case. We looked at practical examples, and then we went on. So that was learning outcome 1. In learning outcome 2, we looked at elements of identifying the different sources of law as well, and looking at how to research statutory law. So we looked at the knowledge of Westlaw, LexisNexis. We looked at definition of statutory law, steps to research statutory law. So things like identifying the relevant legislation, accessing legal resources, official sources and legal databases, how to locate them and interpret the statute. We looked at key tools and resources for researching statutory law, things like official websites, commercial legal databases, and library resources. We looked at challenges in researching statutory law. We also looked at explain where to find legislation. We looked at key websites and resources for accessing legislation and explanation of resources. We also looked at identifying reasons why a statute was created and its functions, and reasons why statutes, functions of a statute to establish legal framework. We also looked at using interpretation section of a statute, what were the purpose and how to use it. We then went on to look at identifying whether a statute or a section is in force, and looked at key steps to determine if a statute or section is in force. We looked at issues and problems the statutes addressed. We looked at the purpose, the section, commencement section, schedules, and issues addressed by statute, checking in force status. We went on to look at verifying if a section is in force, and then identifying supporting material inside a statute, things like, the preamble, the explanatory notes, schedules, interpretation, commencement section, transitional provisions. We also looked at how to use explanatory notes and other supporting materials. And we looked at elements of the other supporting materials in details with their purpose and examples. That was learning outcome 2. We then went on to learning outcome 3 and looked at elements of identifying, being able to apply the skills of legal citation. We looked at what legal citation is and looked at the Oxford Legal Citation, which is our scholar. We looked at the key aspects of legal citation. We looked at how to cite different legal sources such as case law, neutral citations, statutes, statutory instruments, books, journals, and websites. We looked at practical application of legal citation. We looked at the element of common tools for citation, such as a scholar, citation generators, and legal databases. We looked at planning and structure various types of assignments, and we looked at steps taken, approaching also problem-based questions, and we looked at the, excuse me, the IDEA approach, which is identify, define, explain, and apply. We also looked at an alternative approach, which is IRAC, issue, rule, application, and conclusion. We then went to look at structuring a problem-based answer, introduction, issue one, and conclusion. We looked at practical tips for planning legal assignments. We looked at elements of explaining the role of legal citation in academic assessments. We looked at accuracy, credibility, transparency, academic integrity, and consistency. We then went on to look at how to identify legal issues in a problem question. And we looked at recording the similarity index and acceptable scores. So what is the similarity index? And we looked at the acceptable similarity scores within undergraduate assignments, postgraduate research, dissertation, and legal problem questions. We looked at how to maintain acceptable similarity levels. We also looked at practical examples, so identifying legal issues and managing citation. We went on to look at the accurately referenced legal citation in written text using legal citation, or scholar Harvard referencing, using Turnitin, using quotations, paraphrasing, using legal dictionaries like Black's Law Dictionary, academic textbooks, using quotations to support legal arguments, also the use of Turnitin and reporting structure and legal dictionaries, as we mentioned. So that was learning outcome 3. Finally, we went on to learning outcome 4. And learning outcome 4 was to be able to identify personal strengths and areas for development in relation to academic research and writing skills. So here we looked at our own personal journey, how to identify our own strengths and weaknesses. We were able to identify personal strengths, and we looked at things like legal research, critical analysis, time management, legal writing, and attention to detail. We looked at why areas for development, such as paraphrasing, are really important, using diverse sources, problem-solving approaches, efficiency in note-taking, and confidence in public presentation. We looked at strategies to improve academic research and writing skills, such as paraphrasing and summarizing, expanding research scope, applying problem-solving approaches like the IDAC, IRAC, or IDEA, time management, and presentation skills. We looked at self-reflection and developmental plan. We looked at identifying and recording developmental needs and specify priority areas for development. We also looked at our personal learning journey, research skills, academic skills, flexibility, and adaptability. We also looked at elements of describing the range of approaches to learning law and studying, so things like case law analysis, problem solving, lectures and seminars, independent reading, legal research skills, writing and drafting. We also looked at explaining the importance of independent learning skills, and we looked at things like importance such as self-directed, critical thinking, time management, adaptability, things like reflecting and evaluating. We looked at the benefits of independent learning skills. We also looked at elements of creating a plan for further improvement. So, how we'd address our personal strengths and weaknesses and setting goals for ourselves. We looked at academic and personal development. We looked at elements of our personal development goals and how we would adapt them according to, public speaking, maybe feedback utilization, creating a feedback journal to track any sort of improvements that needed making, and any sort of review common feedback points. We also looked at elements of our critical thinking as well, why that's so important, what are the strengths and weaknesses of critical thinking, public speaking and presentation, having strong written, strong written and communication skills. And sometimes it's difficult for people to, do presentations, but if you put it as an action point. So this was learning outcome 4 was more about our own personal development. So that's all learning outcome 1, 2, 3, and 4, quite briefly gone through each one. So you've got a bit of an understanding of what we're doing in each one. So you've got elements of how to cover points in regards to your own personal development. Now we're going to be looking at the assignment discussion and how that pans out. Okay, so we'll go into the assignment discussion. All the sessions for the learning outcomes are recorded and available on Moodle for you. So academic and research skills for law and assignment discussion session. The unit aim is to introduce students to the fundamentals of skills development and the basic elements of research. This includes research in case law and statutory law and helping students understand how to read cases and statutes. Students will explore academic writing and approaches to academic writing, as well as developing skills such as completing citations and referencing their work. So, learning outcomes for this unit are, which I've gone through already, but I'll just give you a brief overview. Learning outcome 1, to understand how to research case law. Learning outcome 2, to understand how to research statutory law. Learning outcome 3, to be able to apply the skills of legal citation. Learning outcome 4, to be able to identify personal strengths and areas of development in relation to academic research and writing skills. So this is really important, and this is assignment declaration. So you are signing this document, making sure that you are declaring that the work you've submitted, just increase the size so you can see the work you've submitted is your own work. It's a declaration of originality form, and this needs to be signed to make sure that you've read the policy, the college's policy in place on plagiarism and collusion, and you've read the policy and the statement of plagiarism within UK Varsity. You are signing that, and this is really, really important. I'll reiterate this so much. You are signing that to declare that you, the work you've submitted is your own work. So you confirm that the work you've submitted is your own work, and you've read the college's policy on plagiarism. That the work you've submitted, you've clearly referenced using the Harvard system of referencing whilst using someone else's work. So you need to make sure you are referencing, fully referenced from books or journals, and provided the sources and tables. If you've used any tables, any diagrams, you've provided the sources and referenced them as well, because it's so important to make sure you reference your work. And I'll all the time throughout the assignment, I'll talk about plagiarism because it's really important in regards to submitting your assignment. You have not made use of work of other students, past or present, without acknowledgement. And this is your own work and has previously or congruently submitted to assessment either at this or other educational institution, and you've not sought or used the services to any professional agencies to produce this work, and you've not colluded, okay, and you will sign this document to declare, it's a declaration that you are aware of the college's policy on plagiarism and that you identify that the work is your own. So it's really important that you identify the work is your own, because you are signing the declaration to say, I've read the the college's policies in place on plagiarism, and the work you've submitted is your own work. And it's all about collusion. It goes through Turnitin. It's all about plagiarism. So you need to make sure that you know what you are signing as well. So just again about, so Next one is what information needs to go on the assignment. So the information that needs to go on the assignment firstly is your name, your registration number, your tutor's name, your word count for this assignment is 2,500 words, and the date of submission needs to go on, and the unit level. And in this case, it's unit level 3, academic and research skills for law. So these need to go on so that the person marking it needs to identify what unit you're doing and the details of the unit. So plagiarism and collusion, going back to what we've done, looked at the declaration. Students must submit and complete work that is their own. And I will reiterate this throughout. Plagiarism is presenting thoughts, ideas, and words of another person as if they were your own. Collusion may occur when students' assignments are very similar and in some cases identical to that of another fellow student. This also amounts to plagiarism. Plagiarism is taken very seriously, and the students are highly recommended to refer to the academic misconduct policy, which is available on Moodle, which is the virtual learning environment that is used for UK Varsity. And here you will need to make sure that you are referring to Moodle all the time, because that's where all your resources are and all your elements of any sort of journals, additional reading, any articles or anything, everything is on Moodle, and your assignment discussion and module specification, which I'll go through later on with you. At the start of the assignment, again, you need to have a table of contents to identify where everything is and what you've put in the assignment. The font size needs to be 12 and 1.5 spacing. Page numbers need to be inserted so it's easier for everyone to understand when it comes to the contents page. It needs to be in Microsoft Word format, not Google. So you can use the free WPS Office and download it here free. So the link is there. So if you don't have it, please do not put your work on Google. Make sure your work is on Word format. Okay. You need an introduction, and the word count is 2,500 words. Make sure you put your assessment criteria in headings. So we're going to go through that so you've got a clear idea. General information. So this is just telling you that everything is available on Moodle for you. The virtual learning environment that is being used is Moodle, and that is the one your course materials will be on. Any sort of additional reading, your recorded lectures are all on Moodle for you, and it is taught through Moodle as well. Any sort of additional reading, any sort of the unit specification and the assignment discussion are all on Moodle. So if you do not have access to Moodle and you can't get onto it, please contact learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Thank you. So let's go into the tasks. So there's 4 tasks for this assessment. So the first task is task 1 of 4. That's learning outcome AC 1.3, 1.1, 1 to 1.3, and 2.1 to 2.4. And you need to be looking at understanding how to find case law and explain how the hierarchy of courts operate, and identify how to research statutory law for this part. So here you need to identify, your task 1 is to locate the following case. So the case is called Pepper, Inspector of Taxes and Hart 1992, a very famous case that you need to look at. Here you will need to look at elements of producing a document following the highlighted information. So there's 4 parts to task 1, okay, which you need to look at how you located the case. So how you identified and used citations. So how would you locate the case? What would you go through? Would you research All England reports? Would you go through citation? Would you go through LexisNexis? So you need to look at that. You'd have to have a paragraph on what the case is about. So make sure you are not, there's 4 parts to it. Make sure you are doing a little bit on each part. So this is that as a heading and then right under it. Next one as a heading and right under it. Next one as a heading and right under it. And then the last one as a heading. So this is task 1. So first, how you located the case, and here how you identified and used citations. Secondly, a paragraph on what the case is about. So the facts of the case, what the case is about, and just a paragraph on that. A paragraph on the decision of the case. So what was held in the case and what was a decision that was identified from the case, and a summary of why the judge ruled a particular way in the case. So this needs to be located for this case. Pepper and Hart, 1992, and you need to produce a document with all this information on. Okay, so there's 4 parts to it. You need to make sure that learners must show knowledge and understanding of the subject area, provide references and to relevant case law and legislation wherever appropriate, and be able to support answers and show evidence of wider reading appropriately. For task 1, the submission is the form of a report, which is in a written format in Word document. Again, Word format is 500 words. So you've got 4 parts to task 1, 125 words per task, okay? There is a little bit of a leeway, 10% leeway either side is permitted. So if you go over, you can go over 10%, okay? So that is task 1. So you've got 4 parts there, and that is pepper and heart, and you'll be looking at learning outcome 1, AC 1.3 to 1, AC 1.1 to 1.3, and 2.1 to 2.4 for that. Task 2. This is task 2 of 4. So here you would look at summarizing 3.1 to 3.3, 3.2 and 3.3. Here you will summarize skills of legal citation and writing. Assignment guidance here, you will choose an Act of Parliament and write a summary that contains the following. So it could be any Act of Parliament, Equality Act, it could be the Health and Safety Act, it could be any of the acts that you could go through, okay? For that act, you need to write the following. So where you found the legislation, okay? That is a heading, where you found the legislation, how you located it. That is really important. The second bit of it is what the legislation is about and why it was drafted. So you would look at elements of that, and that would be learning outcome 3 you would look at. How would you cite this statute in an assignment? So you would look at doing each one, there's 3 parts to task 2, and you would look at doing each part separately and use that as a heading. Do not change the wording of the 3 parts. The assignment brief and guidance is learners must show knowledge and understanding of the subject area. Again, provide references and relevant case law or legislation whenever appropriate, and be able to support answers and show evidence of wider reading appropriately. Delivery and submission of task 2 is that it needs to be in the submission of a form of a document written in Word format. The recommended word limit is 500 words, excluding references, excluding diagrams, references, and appendices. And learners are expected to adhere to the word count. And again, 10% leeway. Make sure that you are not changing the wording, and make sure you are doing what is expected in each part. So there's 3 parts in task 2. Task 3, here you will be looking at learning outcome 3, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3 to understand the skill of legal citation and writing. So the learning outcome, task 2 was to summarize the skills of legal citation, and here is to understand the skills of legal citation and writing. So your task here is you have been asked to produce a guide for other students on approaching legal essays. Write a guide including the following. So you've got 8 parts to this. Do not change the wording. Use it as a heading. How to plan and structure a legal essay. Okay, that will be looking at 3.1, 3.2, and 3.4. How to approach a problem-based question, which we looked at. We talked about that. How you would approach that. So you'd look at learning outcome 3 in that, and you'd look at how you would approach a problem-based questions, and that would be looking at elements of, planning your assignment, and looking at learning outcome 3, looking at the idea and IRAC here as well. Using legal dictionaries and academic textbooks, talk about them. The importance of referencing, so you would look at Harvard referencing and Oscola here, and why it's so important to reference your work. Differentiating primary and secondary resources. What different commands mean, such as assess, evaluate, and these are command words that you need to talk about. That's in learning outcome 3. And the importance of being critical rather than descriptive, and what's the importance of that? So you need to identify that. And then finally, how to use quotations and to support legal ideas and arguments. That is all in learning outcome 3. And there are things about structuring your assignment, how to plan your assignment, how to use legal citation, how to identify legal issues, and look at the acceptability, how to cite things. So there is 8 parts to that, and you need to do each part individually. Okay, so each one is a heading, and then you write under that heading. Again, I will say do not change the wording of that. Okay, it's really important that you keep it to the exact wording of the assignment and what the assignment expects from you. Okay. The assignment brief and guidance is that the learner must show, again, knowledge and understanding of the subject area, provide references to relevant case law or legislation wherever appropriate, be able to support answers and show evidence of wider reading. For task 3, the submission is in the form of a report written in a Word format. The recommended word limit for task 3 is again 500 words. So because there's 8 parts to task 3, make sure you sort out your words and how much you'd write for each one, because some parts may require more than the others. Okay, so you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 bit parts to it, and it needs to be done in a word, written in a form of a report, written in Word format, and it needs to be 500 words, excluding any diagrams, references, and appendices. And here again, you have to adhere to the word count. A 10% leeway either side of this range is permitted before the assessor is instructed to stop reading any further. The final task is task 4 of 4. So there's 4 tasks within this. In task 4, you need to look at learning outcome 4, 4.1, 4 to 4.4, be able to identify your personal strengths and areas of development in relation to academic research and writing skills. So here you would look at write a reflective essay on your own approaches to learning and develop an action plan to develop your academic writing skills. So you've got 5 parts to do here, okay? Which is, firstly, you need to look at how have you approached your research. So what have you done to get this research? What methods have you used to get this research? So that's the first one there. Where do your strengths lie? So do you have good communication strengths? Do you have, good critical thinking skills, research skills? Where do your strengths lie, in what kind of strengths you have? Good time management, punctuality, these kind of things. The third one is, what developmental needs have you recorded in your reflection? So if there's any developmental needs that you need to look at, and you need to make sure that you are recording them developmental needs. It might be that you need to, prioritize your time, maybe that you need to research more, maybe you need to do more critical thinking, maybe you need to be more adaptable to change. So you need to identify your development needs. Fourthly, how development priorities, so what developmental priorities have you identified? So if there's any sort of elements of, any sort of identifying your skills, any elements of note taking, things like presentation skills, what developmental priorities have you identified and how you've identified them? It could be your, research skills. It could be what your current skills are, what your developmental needs are. Things like, paraphrasing, improving on that, broadening your research on your diverse research that you've got, developing a more engaging writing style, maybe looking at allocating more time, prioritizing your time. Implementing feedback consistency, improving your resources, demonstrating any sort of initiative, try to look at your developmental priorities. And then, things like it would be, identifying your own personal learning journey as well in that. Develop a plan for further improvement. So here you would look at a plan for your further improvement. So maybe, that you've put in an action plan together, looking at whether you need to improve on your research skills, whether you need to improve your academic performance skills, whether you need to make sure that you know, have a structured plan to look at your strengths and weakness with action plans, you know, maybe your research skills, maybe your academic writing skills. So that's for that one, any sort of developing a plan for further improvement, maybe time management, critical thinking, maybe adaptability, maybe, you know, your public speaking and presentation skills. You have lack of confidence, you know, and you struggle with presentations, so maybe you need to look at identifying that. So this is task 4, the final task, and it looks at elements of your own developing a plan for further improvement. And you know, you need to put your action plan in, your strengths, your weaknesses, your action plan and timeline as well. And firstly, identify what it is that you want to do, the aspects of it, the strengths, weaknesses, and an action plan and a timeline is really important. So if you're looking at improving your research skills, enhancing writing skills, maybe developing more critical thinking and time management. So make sure you know, you're adapting to that. So put in an action plan. So there's 5 parts to make sure you're not changing each one and you're using the same wording there as well. There's 5 parts to it, and the learners here again need to demonstrate knowledge and understanding, and the delivery is 700 words for that. So the submission is a form of a report in Word format, and the recommended reading word limit is 700 words excluding diagrams, and again you have the 10% leeway. Referencing for all 4 tasks, you need to make sure you are using case law, academic and reliable sources, and using the Harvard referencing style, which is to be included at the end of your work. Make sure you do a conclusion, and again, reference list or bibliography at the end of the assignment to identify that you've clearly understood and done the work in regards to it. Assignment guidance and support, and this is really important in regards to identifying what you need to get into there. Okay, so you need to make sure you look at the assignment guidance and support. So summary of that, make sure you start with an introduction and conclusion, and I've identified that. Make sure you're using Harvard system for referencing, and you can refer to online sites. And there's a link there to a really good one that's used by most learners, which is Neil's Toolbox, and the link is there. If you're using diagrams, make sure you reference them accordingly. Make sure you have a bibliography or reference list, and it's in alphabetical order. That's what I've realized when I've been marking work, that students, learners are not putting everything in alphabetical order, they're just putting the references in. Try to use more examples when explaining certain concepts. And also when explaining, and make sure you are, like I said, each part of each task, there's bits to it, so make sure you are using them as headings and subheadings, and make sure that you are not using bullet points but using them as headings and not changing the wording for them. And you need to refer to the indicative content when you're checking your word count as well, and for this it's 2,500 words. Give proper headings and subheadings, make sure your document looks presentable and professional, and number your figures and diagrams as well. Follow the numbering on the assignment presentation as against the assignment brief. Make sure you're reading everything. Ensure at least 12 to 15 referencing. And again, referencing should be the Harvard system of referencing. Keep a check on word count plus 20%, minus 20% tolerance limit, which we'll go through a little bit. Remember, there's a grading in this course. It's pass or a refer. Do not use AI software to write this assignment. There's only 20% tolerance allowed, else it will be considered malpractice. So going back to the declaration that you sign, it would be considered malpractice if you're taking everything off AI. So you need to make sure that, you know, there's under 20% tolerance on that, and you are not taking anything from AI to help you do the assignment. Please mention the grade you want to achieve, but in this case, if it's only a pass or a refer, so you don't need to do that. Follow the numbering on the assignment presentation against the assignment brief. Again, it's really important to make sure that you read the tasks carefully. A lot of people move away from reading the tasks. Make sure you read them properly so you're able to understand the concepts. Focus on task and the command verbs. Broadly, as guidance, command verbs, you can cover the task by writing explain, define, describe 100 to 125 words, assess, examine, clarify, analyze 175 to 225 words, compare, contrast, critically evaluate 250 to 300 words. Harvard referencing, again, is really important. Referencing needs to be Harvard style as author, date, style in the main text. For example, Slack, Johnston, Brandon Jones, 2011 in text. And then in the reference towards the end, it will come as shown, which is the full reference where the publisher, the book, the name of the book, the author, the year of the book, and the edition. Minimum 6 references, books, journals, articles, website, and how to be included in the bibliography. Give proper headings and subheadings. Like I said, do not use bullet points, okay? Maybe have headings for each part of each task. Make it clear it's task 1, and then you're doing each part. Do not change the wording. Make sure your document looks presentable and professional. Your limit is 2,500 with 10% leeway. Plagiarism or tolerance similarity needs to be below 20%. You need to make sure you are not copying and pasting work, as this is plagiarism. And as I told you, I would go through this throughout the session. Make sure you reference all your sources. Make sure you check your grammar and spelling and avoid using American style grammar. So instead of the Z's, put the S in, which is the UK English command verbs. Refer to ebooks and journals on Moodle for this unit. And if using the UK Varsity slides, then the referencing will be as below: MDT 2022, bibliography, multidisciplinary teams, learning outcome 1, slide number 2 to 10, and UK Varsity, and it was published on 15th of January 2023. And that's how to reference the slides. Any queries or any sort of information you need, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of the assignment is to be done on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk, and it's 2 weeks now after the discussion session has been done. So now this discussion session has been done, you are able to get on with the assignment, okay? Before I finish this session, I just want to show you the assignment brief and how it looks. So you've got a little bit of an idea how the assignment brief looks and where it's available. It's available for you on Moodle, like the the unit specification. I'll show you that first, and then how the assignment brief looks. So you've got a little bit of an idea of that. So this is the unit specification, and this is available on Moodle for you, and it gives you an idea of what is expected, what the mandatory optional requirements are, the grading for it, and what the aims and the aim of each indicative content and the assessment criteria for each learning outcome is there. Okay, so this is a document that is available. The assessment's there, 2,500 words, coursework, and the indicative reading list is there as well for you to look at in your own time. So this is available on Moodle. The next one is the assignment for the assignment brief, and you can just have a look at how it looks. So you've got a little bit of an idea of how the assignment brief looks. This again is on Moodle for you. Everything I have taken and put into the slides is from the assignment brief. So I haven't changed anything. It's just that so it's easier for you to understand, and these sessions are recorded. So this is the assignment brief. This is how it looks, okay? It'll give you an idea of the unit aims. Again, it'll go through the learning outcomes, and then it goes through the tasks. So task 1, and tells you what the unit learning outcomes are, 1 and 2, the assessment criteria for this task, which ones are covered, and then the assignment brief, which is here. For the first one, locate the following case, pepper and heart, and then produce the following. So 4 elements of that. Do not change the wording, please. Again, I reiterate this again and again and again. Do not change the wording. So that's task 1, exactly the same, 500 words. Task 2, it's a learning outcome 3 to 3.1, and it is what you're expected to do here. It's 3 parts to it. Choose an act and look at where the act, you found the legislation, where the legislation is about and why it was drafted, and how you would cite this statute in an assignment. And again, 500 words with 10% leeway. Then task 3, which is 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. And in this, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts to it. And you would look at each bit, how to plan, and have each bit as a heading, and then write about each part. Okay, so that's task 3. So make sure you look at that in more detail as well, okay? And the word count for task 3 is 500 words again, okay? And the referencing, the same, using Harvard system and citing any sort of cases. Then you have task 4, okay? And that is 4.1 to 4.4 assessment criteria, and the indicative, the unit learning outcome is learning outcome 4, to be able to identify personal strengths and areas for development in relation to academic research. So here you will be looking at writing a reflective essay, as we looked at, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things to do here. So you need to make sure there's a heading for each one, and you're writing about each one, okay? And here you have the element of 700 words. So altogether, it should be 2,500 words with a 10% leeway, okay? So you need to make sure you're looking at that. So this is how the assignment brief looks, okay? So just an idea for you, this is how it looks, and this is where I've taken the information to put in the slides for you, okay? Going back to the element of the assignment discussion, PowerPoint slides, quickly before we finish off. So again, just going back to that, make sure you're referencing all your work properly, using the Harvard system for referencing. Make sure you are checking your grammar and your work is presentable and professional. Make sure you are using any sort of additional resources available on Moodle for you for this unit, any sort of additional reading that you can go on to. And make sure you are listening, you are taking on board all the advice and the useful tips given when completing this assignment, and make sure that you are referring to avoid using things like AI. If you use it, there's 20% minus 20% tolerance. You need to be below 20%, and make sure your work is presentable. You're sticking to what the guidance wants you to do it. So if it's a report or a Word format, you are sticking to that. All the learning outcomes have now been recorded, okay, and they're all available on Moodle for you. And this assignment discussion is recorded and available on Moodle for you to look at, to help you and support you when doing the assignment. Any questions you've got, please email learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Submission of the assignment, again, is to be done on learnerwork@ukvarsity.co.uk. Assignment submission is 2 weeks of the completion of the unit and its delivery. As all the learning outcomes have been done and this assignment discussion has been done, you have now got time to get on with the assignment. So thank you for attending today's session, and good luck with getting on with the assignment. Thank you.